Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop at the mall. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddammit, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddammit, we so damn fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests and present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foulmouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can always go to freshisthepodcast.com and just share any of the links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere that podcasts are streamed. And that includes Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. And please rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It will definitely help out the show. If you want to contact me, you can always reach me by email at djkfresh@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Kfresh is the Word, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Kfresh. And you can also follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's is with an IZ, Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And this is episode 136, and this episode is also a two-parter, both recorded at this year's C2E2 convention in Chicago. First, we have the return of the hardest working man in comics, self-publishing creator from Columbus, Ohio, Victor Dandridge Jr. And then I talked with comic book artist known recently for his work on the Elvira comics on Dynamite Entertainment and 12 Devils Dancing, Dave Acosta, from the Detroit area. During my chat with Dandridge, we talked about his recent Kickstarter campaign for his Cre-8 comics brand that was able to raise funds to bring innovative programming and pop cultural engagement to the classroom for 3,000 students in Central Ohio. And also how comics uplift the community and create a purpose for young creators. The next phase for his Vantage Inhouse Productions publishing imprint, and about being a mentor, and much, much more. And after that, during my talk with Dave Acosta, we talk about working on the Elvira comics and what makes the Elvira character so timeless, along with the 12 Devils Dancing comic he did with writer Erica Schultz, who you remember from episode 124, and how he assesses his artistic style on each project. Before we get into the interview with Victor Dandridge Jr., I just want to just shed light on a horrible tragedy for the hip hop community, and that is the murder of LA-based hip hop artist Nipsey Hussle. He was doing he came from he stayed in his neighborhood. He was doing things to uplift the community, and he got murdered outside of his own store on March 31st. And even if you don't listen to his music, you still heard of the things he was trying to do for his community. And a lot of people in rap music don't necessarily go to the extent that he is gone. And he was, he came from a rough background, and he did a lot of, and he's still connected to the Crips gang, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person or anything. He was definitely a great person, and he was doing a lot for the community. He was setting up programs for things that he didn't have when he was a kid, when he was younger. Just, setting up a foundation for the youth to, make his community more, viable, more, get some money for his people, and he was only 33 years old. And before we get into this, the first interview, there's so many video clips, you can go online, just search Nipsey Hussle, and there's a lot of great, nuggets of knowledge he dropped. So I just picked one of them, one of many great. So I'm gonna play, a little clip of some of an interview that he recently did. I'm not sure, what it was on, but he had some really good nuggets of knowledge. And anytime something really hits the hip hop community like that, it really affects me, because it's been a big part of my life, and you can just tell like how much you can tell how much people loved Nipsey Hussle out there, how people looked up to him, and it's a huge loss for the hip hop community and for his neighborhood, for the city of Los Angeles, and the world. So before we get into this interview with Victor Dandridge, I just want to drop this little clip from an interview with Nipsey Hussle. Rest in peace.
You're not gonna get away with nothing in terms of the energy. You know what I mean? You might beat the camera or the police. They might not catch you for what you're doing, but the energy is always gonna return to you. So when you just living in this cycle of being negative all day and just putting out negativity, and that's the only energy you putting out, it's gonna return to you in different form than you put it out in. So I would just say, master your energy. Do your best to master your energy and what you put out. And unless that's what you want. Because you entitled to whatever you want to create, whatever experience you want to create for yourself. But if you're tired of that shit, adjust the energy. As best you can. Adjust what you wake up thinking and what you say. And then, lastly, what you do. And that's not an easy thing to do, because it's such a pressure in these areas to just go by the way things are.
All right, we're here at C2E2 with the hardest working man in comic
Say
books.
that.
Victor Dandridge Jr. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm awesome, man. This is my first time at C2E2, and I'm having a blast.
Dude, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Right.
This is an amazing place. It's gorgeous space. This is where the industry is today. Like, there's no two ways about that.
I feel like this venue has the space to have something like this. It might be a little bit, I guess it'll be more hectic tomorrow, maybe on Saturday.
Yeah.
But
like today's the light day.
Yeah,
today's the Diet Con day. Tomorrow is full-fledged C2E2-ness. This place is going to be packed, hard to move, but the energy is going to be crazy good. crazy good.
Right. Everybody seems cool here. You bump into someone, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Oh, my bad. Yeah, because it's all respect, and everybody understands that, if you bumped into someone, it's because you're actually looking at something amazing,
right.
and not that you're trying to be rude. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
you're not scuffing nobody's Puma.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, that's cool." Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I suck. I personally suck right now. It's my fault. And I'll make it up to you by buying you a book or something. Like that's the vibe here, man. It's such good stuff. Such good stuff.
What's been good with you, man? What are you working on these days? You're always working on a lot of stuff.
I am, man. You don't get to be the hardest working man in comics by sitting on what used to be. Dirk, what's good, man? Beak. Hello, sweetie. I'm sorry, I'm shouting out people in your interview. That's
all good.
So terrible and unprofessional of me.
No, that's perfect.
So right now we've got Vantage Inhouse Phase 2 launching here at this show, which is kind of a return to things because in 2011, we actually premiered our very first book. The Samaritan Issue 1 premiered here. So to start Vantage In-House Phase 2 here is kind of like this nice homegoing. So we've got Never Too Late #1, which is the beginning of the sequel to the very critically acclaimed The Trouble with Love series. And I'm so proud of it. Harold Edge is back on art, and he's done a phenomenal job. The growth in his storytelling and his art, his linear work, the dude is incredible. Like, I am so nervous that we're not going to get to finish this book before he gets picked up by Marvel or DC. It is so real. But he's a phenomenal artist. Listen, if y'all need a storyteller, he is the guy. Trust me when I tell you, you will not be. The only thing you'll be mad at is that you didn't know about him sooner. Like, that's going to be your life. Colors by Juan Cho, fantastic colorist out of Spain, if I'm not mistaken. He's brought some really incredible life to Harold's line work. It's beautiful. The shading of it is so great. And the story, of course, for anyone that knows what The Trouble with Love is all about, Apex Prime, essentially archetype of Superman, has a wife and a family, falls in love with someone else, and years later his son is bringing him to task on why he left. And he has to basically explain how human he is to someone who should fully understand. And in Never Too Late, he's trying to fix some of the mistakes that he made in the past.
Right.
And it's at great risk, great cost, but great story. You know what I mean? Like, it's good stuff. So that's where I am on the publishing front right now. But the biggest news, dude, I just wrapped up a Kickstarter campaign for my You Create Comics line, where I will be getting programming content for 3,000 students in my hometown in Columbus,
awesome.
Ohio.
That's awesome.
Dude, I am so excited about it. The notion of kids creating comics, finding a passion about it, like, it is the best thing in the world. It really is.
How does it feel to, like, after all these years of publishing, doing comic, to be able to help the children like that?
Dude, I mean, there's like joy and there's pride and then there's this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even like, we did our first presentation on Tuesday, and it was like up to 200 kids at a elementary school, and to see their energy, it wasn't even about what I did. It was being able to witness where they are, and that was the cool part. It was like I put on a concert, but I was so excited because they knew the lyrics. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it was cool. You know,
right?
And to be in this spot and to be blessed with a position to have these ideas to go back and help those that were, are from the same area that I'm from and might have the same interests that I have. There's nothing better than that, truly.
What do you feel like you did over the years to be able to put you in that position to be able to help that many kids?
Ooh, I didn't quit. You know what I mean? I looked at things and said, I can do this. There was nothing that I looked at and said that this is out of my reach, that I'm not qualified to do. If I'm not qualified to do it now, I got to learn to figure it out, and I will learn to figure it out. I'm gonna put myself in a position that can be influential without being disrespectful to anybody else that came before me, to anyone that's coming under me. I want to encourage across the board what everyone can do. So this is just an extension of what I'm saying is my motto to begin with. How do I affect positively what other people get to experience? And for this one, it's just a matter of, again, putting in that hard work, never quitting, ups, downs, doesn't matter. Finding a way to say that someone else could benefit from my struggle, so let me go through this and celebrate.
Having this successful Kickstarter to be able to fund all this artistic stuff for kids,
right?
are you working in conjunction with anybody? What's your place? Where's that? Where's your input? What's everything that you've been able to create? How does it fit into the grand scheme of things?
Oh man,
in your hometown.
That's a great question. The thing is kind of the reason for it. I'm the guy that, as hard as I've been working and as well known as I might be, it's not in my hometown, and so it really is a matter of me trying to build that foothold in my hometown and really try to find those people that I can work with to make that impact where I live. So I'm starting with Columbus City Schools. I'm a graduate of Columbus City Schools. And so I'm basically starting where I began. And I figure that's the smartest way for me to do something worthwhile, impactful, and will ultimately mean the most, because I get to show them what they could do if they, have the same mindset, if they have the same tenacity, if they have the same ambition, yeah, that's really it. Like, it's all Vantage in-house material. The Cre-8 line is all things that I've come up with. The biggest partner that I have in that is Page by Page Copies and Finishing, which is the printer that I use. Shout out to Brian Dalton for, again, being like myself, building a business and really kind of, building it from the ground up to impact, highly successfully other independent creators. So. Yes, it's me, putting myself out there, putting my work out there. If anybody wants to join that train, I am all for it. There's a lot of creators that have definitely supported, and I would like to find more ways to include them on these projects. But so far, it's just been me, just because I can now maintain, a little bit more, I don't want to say control, but I'll know more of what we'll need to do later to bring in other people. So I get to control the experience. That's what I'll say.
Before doing this Kickstarter,
yeah.
What was the status of arts in the school or in the community in that area? When you have like Ohio State in the area,
right.
But like, what is the ground level sort of status, like the presence of arts in the schools and in the community?
Ironically, Columbus is very art focused. There's campaigns like Art Makes Columbus that are popping. We do have like the Columbus College of Art and Design, which is a great art school, but at the same time, Columbus is a big little town, so it's so much stuff, but it's splintered. So not everybody works together, not everybody talks to each other.
Right.
So you're going to have factions of people that should be in the same lane, but don't interact or talk to each other at all, if ever. And it's kind of a messed up thing, to me, where what I'm aiming for is a sense of unity. So I'm taking young black kids that are growing up in the urban community that don't know that it's okay to be a geek. They think that that's uncool. Well,
right.
I'm showing you that it absolutely is cool, and it can also be lucrative.
Right.
So, I'm trying to build bridges as opposed to keep things separated. While we do have a great base for art, too many times it's, if you like this particular art and this particular thing, here's your market. If you don't like this, then we don't know what to do to help you. So it's really about trying to build and bridge, gaps across the whole art spectrum.
And you kind of touched upon it, but what is sort of the effect that whatever's going on within arts in Columbus has on the younger students, and what sort of demographic is that in Columbus these days?
It's kind of a mixed bag of things, because based on your affluency level, honestly, you'll get a lot more entrance to a lot of different art things, whether that's plays, dance, visual art. You'll get a lot more entrance into it in schools. The more wealthy districts have a lot more programming that's dedicated and devoted to developing skills.
Right.
Like my sons actually go to Hilliard City Schools. Their mom moved out there 2 years ago, and it is arguably and honestly a better school district. So they went with their mom, and my son's high school has like a 3D printing, department in his school. That's not common in Columbus City Schools. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's things like that where there's that separation, and unfortunately, the schools that need the most influence have the least resources.
Right.
And that's honestly why I'm doing what I'm doing. They don't have it. Some schools don't have a set art teacher. There's like one art teacher that floats around through like 3, 4, 5, 6 schools. So there's no dedicated, time for art.
Right.
Maybe they get it once a week. It's not consistent. Anything can happen and throws the whole game off. So there is an incredible lack. Unfortunately, as it has been in vogue for a while, school systems, districts, and whatnot aren't finding the arts as prevalent or as necessary.
Right.
And that the furthest could be the truth. Like they need art. They need that outlet. You think that kid is wilding out in class. Sometimes they just need a piece of paper and a pencil, and it would be a totally different situation. So yeah, it's a mix of those things.
Yeah, you mentioned about showing that to young black kids that the arts can be cool and lucrative.
Yes.
Is there, especially even in the more affluent schools, is there a presence of black mentors at these schools or a black population at these schools?
Lots of black population, and there are quite a few black mentors. The only thing is that there's never too many, So many different voices can lend their experience to the equation. So just because I'm in a particular space, I encourage other creators to jump in there and share their experience, because their experience is going to be different than mine.
Right.
My brother, Mike Watson, he's doing programs with schools that are right in line with what I'm doing, but we're not competing. We work together. I'll supply him with stuff. He'll bring me in to talk. We found a way that by even living in the same space, we're not competing. We're just sharpening the steel that we use to execute with. So again, we definitely have some very phenomenal black mentors that are active in the community, but we could always use more. Always.
Right. What does it mean to you to be a mentor?
It's literally giving someone an opportunity that I didn't have myself. Sharing my cookbook. There are things that I've learned, and there are things that I wish I knew sooner rather than later.
Right.
And being willing to share those things, because again, steel sharpens steel. So if I give it to you earlier, ideally speaking, you'll master it before I ever did. And what you do with it will inspire me in turn. And it'll keep me motivated to, understand what I'm doing a little bit more, or to explore it a little harder, do something different with it, and try something phenomenal. Right. So, that's the whole point, is get these kids out here to take things to a new level so that I can go to a new level. I only know what I know, and they'll show me what I don't, and vice versa. I'll show them what they don't know, and they'll take that to a new level. So, being a mentor is all about, making that impact.
What's your next goal with that?
After this Kickstarter, having impacted my local community, I do kind of want to take some things on the road a little bit. There are a lot of people that reach out to me and say, oh, my kid would love this. I'm not in your school district, I'm not in your city, I'm not in your state, but, my kid would kill for this. So to hear the audience and take it on the road and give them what they need, that's my next plan.
Right. This new phase of Vantage Inhouse.
Yeah.
How does it feel different than the first time around, when you first launched everything? What's the energy like, The
energy is different because when I first launched Vantage In-House, these were all separated stories with no connection other than the fact that I'm the guy that wrote it. These, for Vantage Phase 2, it's actually a cohesive, shared multiverse. And I found ways to bridge those original stories together and build something that's all connected. And with Phase 2, I'm literally showing you the connections. So I feel both uber scared to do this because there's people that love this work, and now I'm trying to go back to the well. And so there's a lot of expectation. There's a bar that I've set, a huge standard that I've got to maintain. So that's scary on one level. But at the same time, I now have this map to follow, both in my own creative experience as well as what I'm trying to build. And there's a comfort there.
Right.
So it's a weird, vacillating feeling of, oh my God, am I crazy? And then, no, I'm not. I know exactly what I'm doing. So yeah, it's still fun. I definitely feel like that fear is necessary, because if this was just something so easy that I'm like, meh, then I shouldn't do it.
Right.
The fear factor is important. So I'm very happy with the fact that it's this wave of yes, no, yes. It feels good. It feels good.
How do you sort of explain your vision for this to the people that you're collaborating with?
Ooh, I give them copies of books, and I'm like, read this. What do you think of this? What if this went here? What if you were the one who helped me do it? You know, it's all about building. You know, I like telling stories, and I'm guilty of like kind of inflating my script writing because I'm trying to tell the artists the story. And my biggest thing for them is like, look, what I'm giving you is not a blueprint that you have to follow. I'm trying to suggest to you what I see in my head, but it has to be your vision as well. And I'm just trying to tell you the story to get you inspired and enthused about what we're doing. So if you can feel that energy and go with it, awesome. If you want to go in a totally different direction, even better if it works for what we're trying to do. So it's all about, you know, building that interest, always.
This universe that you're creating,
Yeah.
how does that sort of parallel society today?
Ooh, snap. There's a lot of things that are ripped from the headlines, of course. I've got characters that are socially going to fit into demographics that people wouldn't expect. And I think that it's important to have representation that's genuine. I'm not doing things to just kind of, you know, nick off hey, I've got this type of character or, you know, any sort of quota type thing.
Right.
It fits into the story on every level. Even if it's a matter of like, there are things that I know about characters that I've not stated in the stories because it was irrelevant to the story I was telling.
Right.
But it's going to be, you know, matters like this. Like I was literally just talking about the whole J.K. Rowling thing and how, you know, there are a lot of people that are upset about her statements of representation, but not the showcase of representation. And me kind of, you know, treading a line that could be similar, but for what I think is a good reason. So,
like sometimes you got to just let like the reader kind of fill in the blanks.
Exactly.
You can't force feed every little
it's
thing.
not good for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like The Matrix. The Matrix is a movie that we love for 20 years because there's still stuff that the Wachowskis have never come out and said, yes, you're right, or no, you're wrong. And so they just let it be. And if you love it, you love it. If you don't, you don't. And that's okay.
Getting back to sort of like that idea of you know, showing young black kids that it can be cool to be a part of all of this, you know, and as a black man who is a part of, you know, the hardest working man in comic
that's
books.
Right. That's right.
Like, what do you feel your role is for that representation?
So,
whether you're publishing or in your stories.
That's a really good one because a black creator is what I am. It's not who I am.
Right.
And it took me a long time to be comfortable with that designation and determination. I always felt like as a black creator, it would be expected of me to make black specific content. And I never wanted to just do that. Like, I didn't want to make things that couldn't appeal to other readers or wouldn't feature other demographics or age groups or things like that. And I always felt like that set me apart from the black comic community in a lot of ways, but it doesn't have to. There are books that I have, like the book The Samaritan could definitely fit the quote-unquote black comics demographic easily. And it's okay for other books to not do so. And that's the thing that I'm also trying to show these kids. You don't have to just speak with a particular voice because, honestly, I think like that's part of the problem with hip-hop music is so many times the street life was something that earlier artists were speaking of because it's what they knew. Right. Younger people heard it as glorification, decided that that's what they had to do in order to get into hip-hop. No, that's not true at all.
Yeah, they were talking about other people, you know, that they saw, you know.
And
they were dressing like Rakim, Eric B. and Rakim were dressing like the dope dealers.
Yes, because they thought that those guys were cool,
right?
But they didn't sell drugs in order to do it, you know. And so what I'm trying to showcase is, you know, you don't have to be from a particular background to speak about something else. You could have grown up in the grittiest of streets and write highbrow fantasy where, you know, it's elves and you know, hobbits that are running around, man. Like it's okay. You don't have to look like the characters that you're writing about. They don't have to have the same gender as you. I would love to see a progressive urban youth, like young black male, grown up in the streets to write a Twilight-style fantasy, you know, piece from a young girl's perspective. Why not? You can definitely do it. you know, and those are the things that I'm trying to showcase and share, that again, you don't have to be of a particular background to speak with a voice or to an audience. Just don't try to speak for somebody,
Right.
then you're wide open. So yeah, that's what I take as that responsibility factor. And I quote Spider-Man about it. You know, with great power comes great responsibility, which is probably one of the most recognized catchphrases in all of comics. It's actually a distillment of W.E.B. Du Bois' Talented Tim, and so it's basically black philosophy, but told in a way that everyone can get.
Right.
So here is this white character promoting black philosophy, and no one's going to bat an eye about it because it's told in a way that's authentic and cool. There you go. Same thing.
All right. It's been great talking with you. Any final thoughts?
I love you. You are awesome. The spotlight that you put on creators is phenomenal, and you need to be applauded more often than you ever should. You know, like if you ever have any doubts, kill all that noise because you are a fantastic dude, man. Seriously.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was my interview with Victor Dandridge Jr., recorded from the C2E2 convention in Chicago this year. He's such a great guy, and he's doing so much for his own community. Plus, he gives back so much to the comic book community as a whole also. So it's always just great to like pick his brain, see what he's up to. Definitely go support Victor Dandridge. You can always go to the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com, and there'll be all the links to where you can follow him online. All right, let's get into the interview now with Dave Acosta. And sitting next to me is Dave Acosta.
What's up, man?
How has C2E2 been for you thus far?
C2E2 is my favorite show by far. I love Chicago, and the crowds here are awesome, and everybody's like, it's not just about the pop culture stuff, like serious hardcore comic people, you know, art people show up, and it's just amazing. I love it.
What do people come up to you and talk about during the conventions like this?
Well, right now it's mainly about Elvira. I'm drawing an Elvira comic for Dynamite. And so a lot of Elvira fans want to come up and check out the art and stuff and just chit-chat. And so that's super cool. So that's it mainly, just, you know, people into the comic art.
Yeah, I love the Elvira comic book. Your work is very great on there. I love it. How did you get involved in doing that project?
I've worked with Dynamite for a while, and I'm usually paired up with a writer named David Avalone. We've done The Shadow together. We did Doc Savage together. So we're always like first choice for whatever new project is. Dynamite knows that David wants to work with me, so I got wind that he was putting together an Elvira pitch, and I said, oh man, because I'm a huge fan. So I'm like, you better put my name right underneath yours on that pitch. And so thankfully, yeah, Dynamite went with it, and they announced it last year at C2E2. And I'm just stoked. It's a total dream gig, because I've been an Elvira fan since I was, 8 years old. And it's also like a horror comedy, which is awesome to get to draw. I never thought that I would get to draw so much horror in comics. You'd think superheroes or sci-fi or something. But I've been very fortunate because that's like where my passion is. And to add like a comedic element to it is just even better.
What was your sort of thought process going into what you wanted to do artistically for this comic?
I knew it was going to be funny, so I wanted to do a less rendered style on the figures. I went back to old like 60s humor comics that DC used to do, like Jerry Lewis, Bob Hope, Angel and the Ape. And the artist on that is a guy named Bob Oxner, who is like one of my all-time favorites. And it's a super clean, kind of cartoony style, but the figures are still very realistic, So when Avalone was putting the pitch together, he was still trying to kind of get a handle on what the tone was going to be. Was it just going to be horror, adventure, or whatever? So I sent him all this old 60s humor book stuff. I go, it's got to be like this, like Bob Oxner, Angel and the Ape. So that kind of unlocked it for him, and he was able to like, oh yeah, it's a comedy. Elvira can talk to the audience just like she does on her show, and it can just be ridiculous and doesn't really need to logically makes sense. So I did adjust my style because I did do a lot of horror stuff before, and I kind of had a visceral style. So I wanted to just lighten it up with the figures a little bit. The backgrounds are still, actually my point of reference is Scooby-Doo. You ever remember Scooby-Doo had like the best backgrounds? Super scary swamps and castles and stuff, and haunted amusement parks. So I'm doing with clean figures like that, but with the Scooby-Doo backgrounds.
What's been your like favorite part of doing the Elvira comic book?
Just working with Avalone and just getting to draw just the wildest stuff, because we have Dracula in there, we've got Edgar Allan Poe in there, we got Mary Shelley in there, and then in issue 4 she goes to the set of what, for legal reasons, we can't say is Bride of Frankenstein, but a film very similar. So I get to draw, Frankenstein's monster, the bride. It's just the stuff that David gives me is just unbelievable, and I'm just like, this is my dream gig. I can't believe it. Yeah.
You also, did 12 Devils Dancing with Erica Schultz. Right. Yeah, I've had her on the podcast before. I really enjoyed that story. What was your sort of idea going into what you wanted to do with that book?
That one, I wanted to keep it very much grounded in reality. It's a serial killer thriller, but it's not a supernatural horror. So I wanted to make it look like Silence of the Lambs. The people wear regular clothes. The angles aren't super flashy and dramatic. The layouts are very squared off, not fancy, stuff, not show-offy. I didn't want to bring attention to the art. I wanted just to look super grounded, so you're invested just in the story. And so when the horror happens in it, it really pops, because it'll just be mundane, and it's a lot of, it's about the hunt for a serial killer from a disgraced ex-FBI agent. So there's a lot of offices or hotel rooms and stuff. So mundane settings until, the horror really kicks in, and then it gets very visceral, like I mentioned before. And you read it, it gets gnarly. And so I wanted those sections to really pop, the gnarly sections. So when it goes hard.
What other things are you working on these days?
Right now, we're just doing Elvira. It went from a mini-series, and the sales were so good, it's turned into an ongoing. So for the time being, that's what me and David are going to be up to, and I couldn't be happier. Issue 5 is about to come out, and it starts the second story arc where Elvira goes to hell. And that's obviously been a blast drawing, too, so I'm excited for everyone to see that.
Have you ever met Elvira before?
Not yet, no. David lives in L.A., so every time she does a signing or goes to a con, he gets to pop in and say, hey, But I haven't got to meet her yet. She's involved in the comic at every level. She approves the scripts, the covers, the art, everything. So, and she even punches up the jokes sometimes, which is cool. Yeah, so she's been super involved, but yeah, one day.
Has there been any sort of feedback that she's given to you in regards to like the artwork or anything?
No, she's been happy with everything. It's only been suggesting jokes, really, just trying to I think David does a really good job of capturing the character's voice, and having the actual Elvira punch up the jokes for you is even better.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I really enjoyed about it. I'm like, oh, this is Elvira.
It's her,
it is her, Yeah, and she still looks so good at it, Right? She's like 69 years old and still just...
I'm telling you, man, you could adapt this into the next Elvira movie. It'd be fine. She'd do a great job.
Right. It's a very fun comic book. She's still out there, has total full line of different things and merchandise and everything. So
it's she's always been a kind of hero of mine because she owns the Elvira character. She was savvy enough back in the 80s to get the rights to it, and so she's the boss.
What is it about the Elvira character do you feel like is still very like people still love it to this day?
It's tongue in cheek. It's not serious, and it's just good humored and slightly deranged, which I think appeals to a lot of people like myself.
Right. Is there any, final thoughts you want to give about, the convention or anything you're working on?
No, I love C2E2. I love Chicago. I try to do the con every time I can. And if anyone's interested, they can go to my website to see more artwork at it's just davedrawsgood.com.
So that was my interview with Dave Acosta. Like always, you can go to the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com to get more information about where you can follow Dave Acosta online. All right, that's been all the interviews that I did at the C2E2 convention, but I did talk to a lot of other people, and I've already made plans with certain people to be on the podcast in the future. So there's also so much good content coming up on Fresh is the Word. So thank you for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.